Captain Hyunwoo pressed his scaled palm against the cold metal wall of the research vessel. Stellar Dream. The emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows across the bridge, making everything look like a scene from his worst nightmares. 3. Days had passed since the quantum drive exploded in a burst of blue fire, and the silence of deep space had never felt more terrifying. The Stellar Dream wasn't just any ship. She was the pride of the Zephyrian research fleet, equipped with the most advanced terraforming scanners in the galaxy. Their mission had been simple: map potential colony worlds in the Outer Rim territories. Now they drifted like a ghost ship, millions of kilometers from the nearest star system. Communications Officer Taemin's blue-scaled fingers moved frantically across his console, the bioluminescent patterns on his arms pulsing with stress. His reptilian eyes reflected the screen's glow as he cycled through every emergency frequency known to civilized space. Still nothing from Hegemony Command, Captain. Our last position report was filed 48 hours before the drive failure. They probably think we're still conducting routine surveys near the Andorian belt. The bridge felt smaller with each passing hour. 12 crew members had started this journey with hopes of discovering new worlds. Now they huddled together like frightened children, watching their life support systems slowly die. The main view screen showed nothing but the endless black of space, dotted with distant stars that might as well have been painted on canvas for all the good they did. Engineer So Young crawled out from beneath a maintenance panel, her tools floating. Around her in the reduced gravity. Her reptilian features were drawn tight with exhaustion and worry. Green coolant stained her uniform, and the acrid smell of burned circuits followed her like a shadow. "The backup fusion cells are running at 12% capacity," she announced, her voice barely above a whisper. "At current consumption rates, we have maybe 5 days before life support completely fails. The heating systems are already starting to shut down non-essential sections." Navigation Officer Min Jun pulled up a holographic star chart, the blue projection casting ghostly light across his worried face. "We're in the worst possible location. The Hegemony patrol routes don't extend this far into the neutral zone. The nearest friendly outpost is 3 weeks away at maximum warp, and that's assuming we had a working drive." The neutral zone stretched before them like a cosmic graveyard. Most civilized species avoided this region of space for good reason. Ancient sensor logs spoke of strange ships with primitive designs, crewed by beings that called themselves humans. The stories varied depending on who told them, but they all agreed on one thing: humans were dangerous. Dr. Ji Hoon, their chief xenobiologist, floated near the science station, reviewing classified hegemony files on his personal tablet. His usually steady hands trembled as he scrolled through intelligence reports. According to these documents, humans are unpredictable at best. They've refused every attempt at diplomatic contact. Some reports suggest they're cannibalistic. Others claim they experiment on captured aliens. The temperature on the bridge dropped another degree, and Hyunwoo watched his crew shiver in their thin uniforms. The Stellar Dream had been designed for short-range missions, not extended survival scenarios. Their emergency supplies were already running low, and the recycling systems were struggling to keep up with demand. Tai Min looked up from his console, his reptilian features tight with fear and desperation. "Captain, there is one option. We could broadcast a broadband distress signal on all frequencies, not just the standard hegemony channels, but everything. Emergency frequencies, commercial bands, even the primitive radio waves that humans supposedly use." The suggestion hung in the air like a toxic gas. Several crew members hissed in alarm, their scales shifting to warning colors of deep purple and orange. The bridge erupted in worried chatter as everyone began talking at once. "That's suicide," So Young protested, her tail lashing nervously. "The humans might come, but what then? The stories say they take prisoners, conduct experiments. We could end up wishing we'd died quietly in space." Security Chief Dong Hyun, a massive Zephyrian with battle scars across his scaled arms, stepped forward. "My duty is to protect this crew. Broadcasting our location to hostile unknowns goes against every protocol we have." But Chief Medical Officer Soo-jin had a different perspective. She'd spent the last day treating crew members for stress-related illnesses and hypothermia. "We're going to die anyway if we stay here. At least with the humans, there's a chance. Maybe the stories are exaggerated. Hyunwoo closed his eyes and felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders like a physical force. 12 lives depended on his decision. The emergency lights flickered again, and somewhere in the ship's depths, another system failed with a distant grinding sound. The captain opened his eyes and looked at each of his crew members. These weren't just subordinates. They were friends. Colleagues, people with families waiting for them back on Zephyria Prime. The choice was impossible, but it was his to make. "Send the call," he said quietly. "All frequencies, maximum power." Taemin's hands hesitated over his console. "Captain, are you certain? Do it now before I change my mind." The communications array powered up with a low hum that vibrated through the ship's hull. Their distress beacon shot out into the void, carrying their coordinates and desperate plea for help to anyone listening in the darkness of space. The waiting felt like torture. Every minute stretched into an eternity as the stellar dream drifted through the cosmic void, its distress signal pulsing out into the darkness like a desperate heartbeat. Captain Hyunwoo found himself staring at the chronometer on his command chair, watching the numbers tick by with agonizing slowness. 6 hours had passed since they'd broadcast their plea for help. Then sensor operator Young-Soo's console erupted in a cascade of beeping alerts. His scaled hands flew across the holographic displays, his reptilian eyes wide with disbelief. "Captain, I'm detecting a vessel approaching on intercept course. Range, 2 million kilometers and closing fast." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of failing life support systems. Every crew member turned toward the main view screen as Young-Soo transferred the sensor data to the display. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about starship design. The approaching vessel looked like it had been built by someone who'd never heard of aesthetic engineering. Its hull was a patchwork of different metals, some sections gleaming silver while others showed the dull gray of battlefield repairs. Massive cargo containers were bolted directly to the exterior frame, and the ship's engines glowed with an orange fire that seemed almost primitive compared to the clean blue fusion drives of Zephyrian technology. "By the 7 moons," whispered Dr. Ji-hoon, his scientific mind trying to process what he was seeing. "Look at those weapon hardpoints. That ship is armed like a battle cruiser, but it's built like a cargo hauler." The vessel's design was purely functional, every surface serving a purpose. Sensor arrays jutted out at odd angles, communication dishes were mounted wherever space allowed, and the hull showed countless patches where meteor impacts had been repaired with whatever materials were available. It was ugly, crude, and somehow beautiful in its complete disregard for conventional starship aesthetics. Navigation Officer Min Jun pulled up the tactical display, his voice trembling with barely controlled fear. "Captain, that ship masses at least 3 times our tonnage. If they have hostile intentions, we're completely defenseless." The communications array crackled to life, and a voice unlike anything they'd ever heard filled the bridge. It was deep, calm, and carried an accent none of them could identify. The universal translator struggled for a moment before settling. On a rough approximation of Zephyrian speech patterns, "Vessel Stellar Dream, this is Captain Jin-ho of the human cargo hauler Steady Journey. We received your distress call and are responding. Do you require assistance?" The words hung in the air like an impossible dream. The crew of the Stellar Dream stared at each other in stunned silence. A human ship had found them, and instead of demanding surrender or preparing for attack, the captain was asking if they needed help. Communications Officer Taemin's blue scales shifted to a pale white, the Zephyrian equivalent of going ghostly. Pale. His hands shook as he reached for his console controls. They're offering help," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the bridge's ambient noise. Engineer So Young frantically pulled up every file they had on human technology and behavior. The hegemony intelligence reports painted a picture of ruthless warriors who took what they wanted by force. According to these files, humans are unpredictable and extremely dangerous. They've destroyed hegemony patrol ships that got too close to their territory. This could be a trap. Security Chief Dong-hyun moved closer to the weapons console, though their defensive systems were offline like everything else. "Maybe they're planning to board us, take our research data, sell us as slaves. The reports mention human piracy operations throughout the Outer Rim, but Medical Officer Su Jin had noticed something in the human captain's voice that the others had missed. Did you hear how he spoke? There was genuine concern there. If they wanted to harm us, why ask if we need assistance? The steady journey continued its approach, and the Zephyrians could see more details of its construction. The ship bristled with equipment they couldn't identify. Strange antenna arrays, sensor pods that looked nothing like standard designs, and what appeared to be external repair drones attached to the hull like mechanical parasites. Captain Yun Wu felt the weight of decision pressing down on him again. His crew looked to him for guidance, their reptilian features showing every emotion from terror to desperate hope. The emergency lighting flickered once more, reminding them all that time was running out regardless of what choice he made. The human ship was now close enough that they could see lights in its viewports, evidence of a living crew going about their duties. Whatever these humans were, they operated their vessel with the same professionalism that any civilized species would recognize. Hyun Woo made his choice, keying the communications system with steady hands, despite the fear gnawing at his insides. Human vessel. This is Captain Hyun Woo of the Zephyrian research ship Stellar Dream. We have suffered critical system failures and require immediate assistance. Our life support systems are failing, and we have 12 crew members aboard. The response came back almost immediately, without hesitation or demand for payment or political concessions. Copy that, Stellar Dream. We understand your situation and are moving to dock with your vessel. Hang tight, Captain. Help is on the way. Through the viewscreen, they watched the steady journey execute a perfect docking approach, its crude appearance belying the skill of whoever was piloting it. The human ship's maneuvering thrusters fired in precise bursts, bringing the two vessels together with the gentle precision of a master craftsman. Young-Soo, monitoring the docking procedure, called out, "They're extending an airlock tube. Standard universal coupling. They know our ship specifications somehow." As the massive human vessel settled against their hull with barely a tremor, Captain Hyun-Woo wondered if he had just made the best decision of his life, or signed death warrants. For his entire crew, the humans were here, and there was no turning back now. The docking clamps engaged with a metallic thud that echoed through the Stellar Dream's hull. Captain Hyun-Woo stood before the airlock door, his scaled hands trembling, slightly as he watched the atmospheric pressure readings equalize. Behind him, his crew had arranged themselves in what they hoped looked like a diplomatic formation, though their fear was obvious in the way their scales shifted between nervous colors of deep blue and pale yellow. Security Chief Dong-hyun had positioned himself near the emergency weapons locker, his massive frame tense and ready for trouble. Medical Officer Su Jin clutched her scanner, prepared to treat injuries from whatever violence might come. The rest of the crew hung back, trying to look professional while fighting every instinct that screamed at them to run. The airlock hissed as the pressure finally matched, and warning lights shifted from red to green. With a soft mechanical whir, the heavy door began to slide open. Every Zephyrian on the bridge held their breath, expecting to see the savage warriors from their worst nightmares. Instead, two figures in obviously patched environmental suits floated gracefully through the opening. The suits themselves told a story of hard use and careful maintenance. Countless repairs were visible across their surfaces, each patch a different shade of gray or silver. Tool belts and equipment pouches hung from every available attachment point, giving the humans the appearance of walking workshops rather than conquering soldiers. The taller figure reached up and disengaged his helmet with a practiced twist. As the transparent dome lifted away, Captain Hyun-Woo found himself staring into the most unexpected face he'd ever seen. The human had kind brown eyes that crinkled at the corners, suggesting someone who smiled often. His hair was streaked with silver, and deep lines around his eyes spoke of years spent squinting at star charts and engine diagnostics. "Captain Jin-Ho," the human said, offering what appeared to be a greeting gesture with his empty hand. "Pleased to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." The second figure, smaller and more compact, was already pulling an impressive array of scanning equipment from her tool belt. Her suit bore even more patches than her captain's, and several makeshift modifications suggested someone who preferred function over form. When she removed her helmet, shoulder-length black hair fell free, and her alert eyes immediately began cataloguing everything they could see of the Zephyrian ship's interior. "Don't worry about the atmosphere mix," Jinho said, noticing how the Zephyrian crew hesitated near the doorway. His voice carried no trace of threat or demand. "Our environmental suits can handle pretty much anything. We've been in worse places than this, believe me. Now, what's your current status? We picked up some concerning readings on our approach." Engineer So Young stepped forward nervously, her reptilian features showing confusion rather than fear. This wasn't how first contact with savage aliens was supposed to go. "Our quantum drive suffered a cascade failure 3 days ago," she began, her voice gaining strength as she fell into familiar technical territory. The primary coupling matrix overloaded, causing a feedback loop that damaged the containment field generators. "We've been running on backup fusion cells, but they're nearly depleted." While So Young explained their predicament, the human engineer, named Yunji, was already moving around the bridge with casual confidence. She pulled out a handheld scanner that looked nothing like Zephyrian technology, but somehow seemed more practical and reliable. The device beeped and chirped as she took readings from various systems, occasionally making soft sounds of understanding or concern. "Mind if I take a look at your drive section?" Yunji asked, not waiting for permission before pulling up the ship's schematic on her portable display. "These quantum matrix systems are tricky, but I've worked on similar setups before." Within minutes, she was floating through the maintenance shafts toward the engine compartment, following So Young, who struggled to keep up with the humans' easy navigation through zero gravity. The rest of the crew watched in amazement as Yunji moved like someone born in space, using handholds and push-off points with unconscious skill. Meanwhile, Captain Jinho was unpacking what appeared to be emergency supplies from a large duffel bag. The containers looked sturdy but worn, marked with symbols in human writing that meant nothing to the Zephyrians. "These are standard emergency rations," he explained, setting packets on the nearest flat surface. "They're not gourmet cooking, but they'll keep you going. I've also got medical supplies here, some basic tools and a few power cells that might help with your immediate energy needs." Dr. Ji-hoon examined one of the ration packets with scientific curiosity. The packaging was simple but effective, with clear instructions in multiple languages, including several the Zephyrians recognized from galactic trade routes. "These are designed for multiple species compatibility," he observed. "The nutritional breakdown shows careful consideration for different metabolic requirements." From the engine compartment came the sound of Yunji's voice, slightly muffled by distance but clearly excited. "Found your problem. This coupling here is completely fused. Looks like a manufacturing defect that finally gave way under stress. I can fabricate a replacement, but it'll take some time. My workshop has the right materials." Captain Jinho nodded, as if this was exactly what he'd expected to hear. "Yunji's the best engineer in 3 sectors. If anyone can fix your drive, it's her. She once rebuilt a Centaurian freight hauler, using nothing but spare parts and determination. The casual competence of both humans left the Zephyrian crew speechless. These weren't the savage monsters from hegemony intelligence reports. They were professionals who approached problems with calm efficiency and genuine desire to help. Medical Officer Su-jin finally found her voice. "Captain Jin-ho, we don't have any way to pay you for this assistance. Our government accounts are accessible, only from Zephyrian space, and we have no trade goods aboard." Jin-ho looked genuinely puzzled by the question, his weathered face showing confusion rather than calculation. "Pay us. You sent a distress call. Someone needed help." He gestured around the failing ship as if the situation explained everything. "That's what you do when people are in trouble. You help them." The simplicity of his answer struck the Zephyrians like a physical blow. No demands for payment, no political negotiations, no questions about species allegiance or territorial disputes. Just help offered freely because it was needed. Captain Hyunwoo found himself staring at this human captain with growing amazement. "But the reports about your species, they say humans are aggressive, territorial, dangerous to other civilizations." Jinho's kind eyes hardened slightly, and for a moment the Zephyrians saw a glimpse of the steel that might make humans formidable enemies. "Depends on who's writing the reports, I suppose. We don't bother people who don't bother us. But when someone's in trouble, he shrugged, the gesture conveying volumes about human philosophy. Well, here we are. The repair work began immediately, and with it came something neither crew had expected: genuine curiosity about each other. As Yunji and So Young worked side by side in the cramped engine compartment, their initial wariness gave way to professional respect. The human engineer's tools were unlike anything the Zephyrian had seen before, crude-looking but incredibly effective, each one modified for specific tasks through years of field experience. "Your plasma cutter is remarkable," So Young observed, watching Yunji slice through a fused coupling with surgical precision. "The beam stability is better than our factory equipment." Yunji grinned, her face streaked with coolant and metal. "Shavings. Built it myself from salvaged parts. Standard issue tools break too easily out here in the deep black. When you're 3 months from the nearest repair station, you learn to make things that last." Meanwhile, on the bridge, Captain Jinho was examining the Zephyrian star charts with obvious fascination. The holographic displays showed detailed surveys of dozens of star systems, each marked with potential terraforming data and environmental assessments. "Your mission parameters are impressive," he said to Captain Hyunwoo, studying the complex orbital mechanics calculations. "You're mapping worlds for colonization?" Dr. Ji-hoon floated over, his scientific enthusiasm overcoming his earlier nervousness. "Not for conquest, if that's what you're thinking. We're researching terraforming techniques to help refugee populations. The galactic conflicts have displaced millions of beings, and they need new homes." Jinho's expression grew thoughtful. "We've seen some of those refugee ships, whole families packed into cargo holds, kids who've never seen a planet's surface. It's heartbreaking. The first shared meal happened almost by accident. Hyunji had been working for 16 straight hours and needed sustenance, while So Young was exhausted from trying to keep up with the humans' seemingly endless energy. They found themselves in the Stellar Dreams small galley, sharing emergency rations and comparing stories about engine failures they'd survived. "The worst breakdown I ever had," Yunji said, warming a self-heating meal pack, "was when our entire navigation system died during a solar storm. We were flying blind for 3 weeks, using dead reckoning and pure luck." So Young's scales shifted to pale green with amazement. 3 weeks? How did you survive?" "Teamwork and stubbornness, mostly. Plus, Jinho refused to give up, even when the rest of us were ready to abandon ship." Soon, other crew members began joining these informal gatherings. Communications Officer Tae-min was fascinated by human linguistics, spending hours with Jinho discussing the evolution of trade languages across different sectors of space. "The hegemony told us humans were dangerous expansionists," Tae-min admitted during one conversation, his blue scales flushing darker with embarrassment. "They said you conquered entire star systems and enslaved other species." Jinho nearly choked on his reconstituted coffee, laughing so hard that tears formed in his eyes. "Expansionists? Friend, we barely managed to keep our own systems running. Most human ships are like mine, independent traders just trying to make an honest living hauling cargo from one end of nowhere to the other." Navigator Min Jun had been listening quietly, his reptilian features showing deep confusion. But the stories of human aggression, the reports of destroyed hegemony patrol ships, Yunji looked up from her welding work, her face illuminated by the bright blue flame. "Those stories probably come from the time we told the Hegemony Council they couldn't conscript our colony worlds for their latest territorial war. They wanted to draft human settlements as cannon fodder for their expansion into Rigelian space. We said no," Jinho added simply. "Apparently that made us dangerous rebels instead of sovereign people with the right to choose our own path." The picture became clearer as the days passed. Humans weren't the savage monsters of hegemony propaganda. They were traders, explorers, and engineers who valued independence above political convenience. Their ships were crude because they built them for function rather than intimidation. Their technology looked primitive because they designed it to be repaired anywhere, anytime, with whatever materials were available. Medical Officer Su Jin discovered this firsthand when she helped treat a minor burn Yunji received while working on the quantum coupling. The human's medical record showed a lifetime of injuries from dangerous repair work. each one treated with practical field medicine rather than advanced hospital care. "You don't have access to regeneration therapy?" Sujin asked, examining. "Old scars that proper medical treatment could have prevented. Too expensive, and most stations won't treat humans anyway," Yunji shrugged. "We take care of our own. Jinho's got steady hands and a good eye for stitching. That's enough for most." "Problems." The casual way she accepted what seemed like medical discrimination shocked the Zephyrian crew. They began to understand that humans existed on the fringes of galactic civilization not by choice, but because more established species had decided. They didn't belong. Security Chief Dong Hyun found himself sharing watch duty with Jinho, both men keeping an eye on ship systems while their crews slept. The human captain proved to be an excellent storyteller, with tales of strange worlds and stranger beings encountered during years of independent trading. "We once delivered medical supplies to a crystalline hive ship," Jinho recounted. "Beautiful beings made of living mineral formations. They paid us in synthesized gems that sang when you held them up to light. Still have a few in my cabin. They help me sleep during the night cycles." "The hegemony classifies crystallines as non-sentient resources," Dong Hyun observed. "The hegemony classifies a lot of things wrong," Jinho replied quietly. "Sentience isn't about having the right kind of brain. It's about caring for others, making choices, creating something beautiful just because you can." By the third day, when the Stellar Dreams engines hummed back to life with renewed power, something remarkable had happened. The two crews had become friends. Not allies of convenience or temporary partners, but genuine friends who shared jokes, compared technical knowledge, and worried about each other's safety. Yunji and So Young had developed a working partnership that transcended species differences. They communicated in the universal language of engineering, solving problems together with a combination of Zephyrian precision and human innovation. The successful engine restart was celebrated by both crews together, humans and Zephyrians floating in the engine bay. As the quantum drive's gentle hum filled the compartment, it was the sound of hope, of systems working as they should, of a ship ready to carry its crew home safely. But none of them realized yet that their friendship would change the galaxy forever. The return journey to Zephyrian space took 12 days, aboard the Stellar Dream, now running smoothly thanks to Yunji's repairs. But Captain Hyunwoo spent most of those days staring at his personal log recorder, trying to find words that would convince the High Council that everything they believed about humans was wrong. The steady journey had escorted them for the first 3 days before Jinho received an urgent cargo contract. Their farewell had been surprisingly emotional, with both crews exchanging contact frequencies and promises to stay in touch. Yunji had even left behind a small toolkit as a gift, telling So Young that every good engineer needs backup tools. Now, as the familiar blue-green glow of Zephyria Prime filled the main view screen, Hyunwoo knew he was about to walk into the most important briefing of his career. The High Council had been waiting for their return, expecting routine survey data about potential colony worlds. Instead, they were about to receive a report that could reshape galactic diplomacy. The council chamber was exactly as imposing as Hyunwoo remembered, a vast circular room with floating platforms for each of the 12 council members. Ancient, holographic displays showed the current state of Zephyrian space, trade routes and military positions. The air hummed with the power of centuries-old technology, and the weight of tradition pressed down on everyone who entered. High Councillor Jae Sung, his ancient scales bearing the ceremonial markings of supreme authority, gestured for the crew to approach the central testimony platform. "Captain Hyunwoo, your emergency beacon went silent for 7 days. Our search. Vessels found no trace of your ship in the survey sector. Explain this absence." Hyunwoo activated his personal recorder, and the chamber filled with audio logs from their encounter. The council members listened in growing amazement as they heard human voices offering assistance, technical discussions between Yunji and So Young, and casual conversations about everything from engine maintenance to refugee assistance programs. "This recording is authentic," demanded military advisor Kang Ho, his scarred features showing deep skepticism. "These humans actually repaired your ship without demanding payment or territorial concessions." "More than that," Hyunwoo replied. his voice growing stronger as he found his rhythm. They risked their own lives to save complete strangers. Captain Jinho and engineer Yunji worked for 3 days straight, using their own supplies and equipment. They asked for nothing in return except our safety. Dr. Ji-hoon stepped forward, with his detailed analysis of human technology and behavior patterns. The humans demonstrated advanced engineering capabilities, sophisticated understanding of multiple alien physiologies, and extensive knowledge of galactic trade languages. These are not the primitive savages described in hegemony intelligence reports. The chamber erupted in heated discussion. Several council members spoke at once, their scales shifting through colors that indicated confusion, disbelief, and growing excitement. This wasn't just a rescue story. It was evidence that challenged decades of established foreign policy. Cultural advisor Minho raised a scaled hand for silence. If this report is accurate, we have been grievously misinformed about human intentions and capabilities. The implications for our relationship with the hegemony are significant. Over the following weeks, Hyunwoo found himself testifying before committee after committee, each group of officials trying to understand how their worldview had been so completely wrong. The story spread beyond government circles, reaching news networks and academic institutions throughout Zephyrian space. Public opinion began to shift as citizens heard first-hand accounts of human generosity and competence. The contrast with hegemony propaganda became impossible to ignore, especially when trade officials realized that humans had been offering beneficial commercial relationships that the Zephyrian government had rejected based on false intelligence. The breakthrough came when Communications Officer Taimin presented his linguistic analysis of human trade frequencies. They've been trying to establish diplomatic contact for over 50 years, he reported to a packed assembly hall. Every message was peaceful, offering cultural exchange and mutual assistance. We ignored them all because the hegemony classified humans as hostile. 6 months after their rescue, the Zephyrian High Council took an unprecedented step. In a formal session broadcast across their entire star system, they voted unanimously to petition the Galactic Assembly for official recognition of humanity as a civilized species deserving of full diplomatic status. The petition caused a political earthquake throughout known space. Other species that had accepted hegemony characterizations of humans began questioning what else they might have been told incorrectly. Independent traders started seeking out human merchants, discovering that their reputation for honest dealing was well-deserved. The hegemony's response was swift and angry. They accused the Zephyrians of being compromised by human propaganda, threatened trade sanctions, and demanded that the petition be withdrawn. But it was too late. The truth was spreading faster than political damage control could contain it. A year later, Captain Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the first joint Zephyrian human research facility. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, combining Zephyrian precision with human adaptability to create something neither species could have built alone. Through the transparent aluminum viewport, he watched ships from both species docking side by side. Zephyrian research vessels worked alongside human cargo haulers, their crews sharing meals and technical expertise. The sight still amazed him, proof that fear and prejudice could be overcome by simple human kindness. Familiar laugh drew his attention, and he turned to see Jinho and Yunji approaching. Both humans now wore the distinctive badges of official diplomatic escorts, their patched work clothes replaced by more formal attire that somehow looked uncomfortable on their practical frames. "Captain Hyunwoo," Jinho called out, his weathered face creasing into a genuine smile. "Good to see you again. How are So Young and the rest of your crew adapting to their new roles?" "Better than expected," Hyunwoo replied. "So Young is leading a joint engineering program, and Taemin has become our top expert on human Zephyrian cultural exchange. They all send their regards." Yunji joined them at the viewport, watching a human freighter carefully maneuver into a docking bay designed for Zephyrian specifications. "Strange to think that fixing one broken quantum drive could lead to all this," she mused. "Did you ever imagine that rescue would lead to changing galactic politics?" Hyunwoo asked. Jinho's expression grew thoughtful, as he watched the bustling activity around the station. "We just answered a distress call. That's what you do when someone needs help. The rest was up to people like you who chose to see truth over fear instead of believing comfortable lies." Through the viewport, they could see construction crews working on the station's expansion. Soon there would be facilities for other species too, crystallines who sang their mineral songs, nomadic traders who traveled in generation ships, and dozens of other civilizations that had been marginalized by hegemony politics. The unlikely alliance between humans and Zephyrians had begun with a simple principle. When someone calls for help, you answer. That principle was now reshaping galactic civilization, one rescue at a time. The end.